First started, I was like, I'm not working past 6 o'clock. Like, what is this? Like, why are these people working past 6 o'clock? And so I used to think like this was not normal. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about what is consulting and what it's like to work in consulting in one of the big fours. So this will be more of an introductory type video rather than going through the full shebang. I know in January, a lot of us are like, what are we doing with our careers? Like, do I want a career change? So I thought, why not create a video about consulting? So if you are looking to change, or you've always just wondered what consulting is, this is a video which will give you a very brief, quick understanding of it all. So let's get into it. Okay, so what do consultants actually do? According to Google, a consultant is a person who provides expert advice professionally, usually an experienced professional in a specific field who possesses a comprehensive knowledge of the subject matter and uses it to help solve a client's problem. So in a nutshell, that is what consulting is. However, consulting is so broad. You have so many different areas of consulting. So you have management consulting, you have strategic consulting, you have automation consulting. You have so many different parts of consulting. So for me, I sit in automation, so it's gonna be a little different to management consulting. So it really just depends on what area you're in. I think a lot of the things I will be talking about will be more in the automation robotics consulting, because that's where my experience has been for the last 2 years. So just bear that in mind. I also find it really difficult when people ask me, so what do you do as a consultant? I find that so difficult to answer because no project is actually the same. So the project I'm on now, where I'm more of a consultant, is completely different to the project I was on last year, where I was a developer. So what I love about consulting, especially when you work in the big fours, is certain teams, they really allow you to get so much experience, so much exposure into different parts of a project. So for example, if you have a business background, but you really want to know, I want to be a bit more technical, kind of want to be like a developer for a month. A lot of the times, if you find that opportunity, no one's going to stop. I'm going on a tangent, but the point is no project is the same. No client, no, I've never been on a project that has ever been the same. Like at one point I was doing GDPR, I've been doing strategy, and now doing automation. So in a nutshell, it's really hard to explain, but the end goal is usually always the same. It's to help a client with an issue. It's to help them either reduce costs or help their performance. So there's always usually a similar end goal, but the way to get there is a vastly different. So that leads into my next point around your job title doesn't mean much. So as I said, I've been on a project where my job title was still a consultant, LinkedIn consultant, everywhere consultant, but for me, my job role wasn't a consultant. I've been a project manager, I've been a developer, I've been a business analyst, I've been a consultant. So it really doesn't define where you have to be. And if you are looking to get into consulting, when you do go in for the interview, ask those questions like, will I have experience in different areas? Will it just be business analyst, if that's what the job title says, or will it just be consulting? Ask those questions. I think a lot of the time, especially in the big fours, they love to know that you're willing to learn a lot and you're willing to try out different things, especially when you're junior. So when you're in junior roles, you're able to, you know, go out, get different experiences, be on projects that might not specifically be to your objectives. So if one of your objectives is to become a developer, but you go on a project where you're a project manager, you have that flexibility, you have that ability to, you know, just kind of bounce around and not worry too much. But if you're manager, senior manager, you're a bit more intentional, you're a bit more targeted to the projects you go on, because you're the SME, so you're going to be on the projects that you know about. So basically, to conclude that bit, your job title doesn't always define your job role. More often, especially in the big four, as I said, you will have the ability to try out different projects because there will be so many kinds of different projects to allow you to do so. So I guess the perks of working in consulting is you never know what your next project would be. So if you're somebody who likes change, you kind of like don't like to be in the same role, on the same projects, working with the same people all the time, then consulting is definitely something that you should look into. As I already said, no project is the same, but that also comes with the people. So I can't even count how many people I've worked with and how many people that I've gotten along with, and like we still network on LinkedIn, because a lot of the times you're working with clients who you probably won't work with again, or maybe you'll work with them down the line. But for me, I love that. I love finding out about different industries. I am very nosy, so I love finding out about people, like how people have gotten to their career and the paths they've taken, especially when I'm working with like senior leadership teams. I always find it so interesting. So I definitely think it's a place where you have to be very people orientated. But that's definitely one of the perks. The perks is you never know who your next client will be. You never know the kind of person you'll be working with. It obviously has its downfalls. Sometimes you will get stakeholders or clients who aren't that easy to work with. But that's like anything, right? Like even if I was in a job where I was in the same role, in the same position, I might work with people that I don't like. But the good thing with consulting is you won't work with them forever, because you will change in a few months. So that's why I enjoy it anyway. So another perk is, and this is more specifically to the big four, so EY, PwC, Deloitte, KPMG, they carry a lot of weight behind the name. So when you have the name on your CV, you will be surprised how many people reach out to you on LinkedIn who want to work with you. And so it does carry a lot of weight, and in your long-term progression, sometimes it's good to look at how can this benefit me in the long run rather than the pay, because the pay isn't always good at these big fours compared to, you know, smaller boutique firms, but they do help in the long run. So if you're strategic with it, you never know what you'll be getting, what pay you'll get after you worked at one of these firms. I'd say that those are my two main perks. So I really want to be transparent and honest and open with you all. So I'm going to talk about the downfalls of working in consulting and in the big four. And I think one of those is how demanding it is. So I think we've probably all heard, you know, like you're working like crazy hours and you wake up really early and go to sleep really late. For me right now, it wasn't like that. I've been on projects where it is like that. But I think, especially during COVID, I think people and organisations are looking at mental health, physical health, well-being of their employees. So, I mean, it is still like that, but I think there's more space to really be open and honest with like managers and stuff about that. But yeah, I think it's very demanding. It's funny because I think when I first started, I was like, I'm not working past 6 o'clock. Like, what is this? Like, why are these people working past 6 o'clock? And so I used to think like this was not normal. And now I'm like, 6 isn't too bad. Like, I feel like I've really been brainwashed into thinking like 6 isn't actually that bad. But it is demanding. Like, sometimes I do wake up at 7, 8 o'clock to get a few emails out before I start a busy day of work and then finish late. So it is demanding. You're not required to just work on your project, so on your client work. For me at least, I am required to do so many other different things within the business. It's not that many, but again, it's time intensive, right? Like, everything requires time, and there's only so many hours you have in a working day. So if you can't get it done in the working day, then there's that unsaid expectation to do it after work. So that's one of the biggest downfalls, is like how demanding it is. I guess on the flip side to that, you can be very flexible with your time. You can like tell people, so I always say that I'm a morning person, so I wake up early and that's the best time for me to work. By 6 o'clock my brain's like dead. Like, I can sit in meetings, my brain's not really functioning. I can do a document, not really thinking, my wording won't be the same. And so I have that conversation with my managers. Like, they know, okay, she's probably gonna log off at this time, but I will do the work in the morning. So there is that flexibility as well. But anyway, that's enough. I'm not trying to like put consulting onto people. I just want to be transparent and honest in terms of how I've experienced it, and what it's really like to work in consulting, because sometimes you don't really know, like you hear things here and there, and that's the purpose of this video, like to really give that insight. So I guess for me, the last thing that I would like to share in terms of finding out whether consulting is for you, really understanding what it entails, is the skills and the soft skills that have helped me to kind of navigate my way through consulting, allowing me to like get promotions, and yeah, what I just think is really essential to consultants. So the first one is being a people person and a professional people person. And what I mean by that is, I've already mentioned that you will work with so many different people if you're consulting, especially if you're on the BA side. You will find that your projects can typically only last up to 4 or 5 months, so, or even on average 3 months. So you're often rotating projects and you're often rotating who you're working with. And I said you can have really difficult colleagues, really difficult clients. And so that means you have to be a people person, but even professionally, because when they're not making any sense, when they're driving you crazy, they will. There will be times where these people drive you crazy. You have to really be professional, but be a people's person. So really, like, you know, you're managing upwards and you're managing downwards sometimes. And it's really the case of having that skill set to not show your emotions, to, you know, keep it calm and collect, to really communicate the point you're trying to make. And that is one of the biggest skills. I think that's one of the major skills. I think a lot of the time it's not the work that is difficult, it's often the people. I think sometimes it's really difficult just managing people. And it doesn't matter if you're a manager or you're not a manager, you will still have to manage in some way. You might have to manage upwards, like I said, like you might have to say to your manager, this isn't ideal, this isn't gonna work, this delivery plan that you've put out is not realistic. It's financially great, but it's not realistic. So there are going to be times when you have to have that skill set. So I guess being a people person and managing is like a skill that I would put on the same level, because they're equally as important. So another skill that I would say is important to being a consultant is adapting quickly. So let's say in 1 month you might be on a retail project, and then you've learned everything about the industry, the activities, the roles, like everything to do with retail or everything to do with the area that you're helping with. And then in 3 months' time, you then get put on a project in a bank. So you're now in the financial industry. And it's kind of like you have to adapt not only to, you know, the new way of working. So if they work later, if they are a bit more governance specific with the way they do work. So if there's like a whole review before you submit any work. So just the ways of working could be completely different. But also you then have to learn that industry, right? Like you then have to learn, like, okay, what do these terminologies mean? Like, it is a completely different company you're going to. It's kind of like you're working for different companies, right? So you'll have to have that new knowledge transfer or knowledge teaching that you will do for yourself. And this isn't to put anyone off. Like it over time it becomes quicker and easier. You don't even think about it. It's kind of like, cool, I'm going on this project, and sometimes you've heard the names, and so it's like, oh, like now I'm going to be working on this project. So it is really exciting, but I think it's just a skill that I think over time it will get more developed. But it's definitely to have an open mindset about being able to adapt quickly and not kind of just being focused on one thing, because it can change. And it can even change in like a week. Like on Friday, it might be Monday, and on Friday you find out that you're no longer on the project. So like, cool, okay, where's my next project? So it's just having that adaptability skill, I guess. I guess the last skill I would say is really important to being a consultant is having a yes attitude. I don't even know if this is a skill. I really don't think this is a skill. Maybe it's like a can-do attitude, but I don't like that. I don't like that phrase. It's so like, oh, can do. It reminds me of like, you know, when your teachers are like, yes, you can do it. Kind of reminds me of that. Anyway, yeah, I think it's having a yes and a can-do attitude, like believing that you can do everything. Like, you will, that saying, fake it until you make it, I actually think that's consultants. I think that a lot of times we go into projects and we've been put forward for a role that we know, like, we don't really have the knowledge or the skill set for. Like, we might have the basic skill set, but oftentimes I feel like it's been oversold a bit. So I think the last time I was thrown in the deep end was not too long ago, about a year ago. I was on my first intensive developer project. So I've got more of a business background academically, and then when I started my graduate job, that's when I became a bit more technical. And I've been more of a hybrid, so a consultant and a developer. So I will create more proof of concepts or little mock-ups for clients, and this one was full on developing for a bank. And I just remember wanting to cry every day for the first few months, because I was like, what did I tell them? I didn't think I could actually do this. But I was thrown in there. There was no turning back. I mean, there was turning back, but I was determined, now I'm doing this, I'm gonna have to finish it. And now I can say for a whole year I was a full-time developer, and it was interesting. It was I learned so much, and I might do it again in the future, who knows, but I wouldn't have that experience now without just saying yes. And I think a lot of times when we get too comfortable, it just means that we need something to give us that push to get out of our comfort zone. And I definitely think consulting is that push. It really gets you out of your comfort zone. So yeah, the last one is have a can-do attitude. So that is all of my points on consulting, what I think is really useful to know before you go into consulting, or even if you've got an interview soon, hopefully you can take these skills and say how you've used them as examples in some of your answers. Let me know if this was useful. Let me know if you are interested in consulting, if you're going through it, if you're making a career change. I would love to hear from you all, and I will see you in my next video.